all of those things that I'm not going to talk about at all. I'd like to thank Joel Comm for bringing his notes up on stage because I'm about to take you on an emotional journey and I need my security blanket. So I want you to imagine it's not 4:15 on a Wednesday afternoon, it's actually 4:15 on a Tuesday afternoon. I'm rushing because a client needs a fresh set of potential crisis scenarios on his desk by 8 a.m. And I have to pick up my 17-month-old toddler, whom nobody knows about yet, from school for a special date that we have at the library. Law mandates that we be there by 5 o'clock, and I still have to finish 2 scenarios, write a blog post, answer some emails, and get with my team. But I take a deep breath. I tell myself it always gets finished. I can definitely do it after Addie goes to bed, and I rush out the door. When I walk into her classroom, my little blondie is sitting in a big kid chair. She's at the table, she's putting together a puzzle. She's wearing a pink shirt that says "It Girl," a little denim skirt, her little pink Nikes, her very first Nikes. Her hair that you can barely see is pulled up into a ponytail that's like pebbles, and she has fingerprints all over her glasses. So stinking cute. When she sees me, she comes running for the door and yells, "Mama," and all of the kids in the class say, "Eddie Mom, Eddie Mom, Eddie Mom." She throws herself into my arms and takes my face in her hands. She leans in and she pats my face with her little hands, and then she takes a kiss. I ask her how her day was, and I get a quick update from her teachers. Then we hurry out to the car where she wants to buckle herself into the car seat. For those of you who have toddlers, this is not a big surprise. I hand her a book and her hat. Her hat's actually in her lap. She loves that thing, just to distract her. And because I have to get her buckled in because we're going to be late. And we go on our way to the library. Miraculously, we arrive 3 minutes early. Take that deep breath again. So I unbuckle her and I let her walk to the door all by herself. Big deal. She gets to go to the door all by herself. We go inside and over to a corner where the kids can play without disturbing the other visitors. And I commandeer a table while she pulls out another puzzle to start to play. A few minutes later, a 17-year-old girl with braces walks in and says, "Adelena." I look up, and there's Addie's biological mother. She's there for her 2-hour visit with my toddler. I thought I could get through this without crying. She sits down next to me, puts a backpack on the table, starts pulling clothes out, and she keeps trying to get Addie's attention. The thing about it is Addie doesn't go by Adelena, which is her given name. When she arrived, nobody knew how to pronounce it because the spelling's weird, so everybody calls her Addie. The only person who calls her Adelena is this person who shows up for 2 hours every Tuesday. We finally get Addie's attention. She gets out of her chair, she pulls herself onto my lap, and she clings. Her biological mom pretends it doesn't bother her that she's paying attention to me and not to her, and she says to me, "Do you mind if I change her clothes?" I do mind, greatly. But she's not legally ours yet, so I say sure, and I hand her over. She proceeds to take her cute It Girl shirt off and her little denim skirt, and she puts on a white polo shirt and a green tutu, both of which are 3 or 4 sizes too big. She then positions Addie in different spots to take pictures. It's her own photo shoot. She's very, very pleased with herself. When they're finished, Addie tries to take the tutu off because it's too big and she wants to play, but no, the tutu must stay on until the end of the visit. But let's rewind. I've been married for almost 12 years. We've not exactly tried to prevent an accident. And I learned I couldn't have kids a few years ago. Not a big surprise, you know, marriage, all that comes with it. And several women in my family had not been able to have children, so I sort of won the genetic lottery. I was fine though. I'd started a business, it was doing really well. Our blog Spin Sucks was taking off. I was cycling competitively. I had gotten my first book deal with Marketing in the Round and co-author with Jeff Livingston. My husband Kelly and I were traveling the world. We were eating in the fanciest restaurants. It really was a perfect life. It's the life that everybody wants to have without kids. But in November of 2012, the doctors made it official I couldn't have kids. And we decided we either needed to be okay with that or we'd have to build our family in a non-traditional way. When we were both honest with ourselves, we discovered that we didn't see ourselves without kids. I'm the oldest of 6, he's the oldest of 4. We didn't see ourselves without kids. We carefully considered a traditional adoption and adopting through the foster care system. As we researched and learned about both, we discovered very few children are actually returned home if they once they enter the foster care system. Sometimes kids go into the system, they go back to their parents, something goes wrong, they go back into the system, into another home, and they can be in many, many homes throughout their lives. There are more than 400,000 kids in the system, 400,000. And what's worse is less than 1% actually go home, less than 1%. As a business owner, when you have an ROI of less than 1%, it really makes you wonder why you continue to keep doing what you're doing. But that's the government for you. Addie was in 10 homes in the first 8 months of her life. She arrived on our doorstep when she was 8 months old. We were her 11th home. While most kids remain in foster care and get bounced around and around and around and around, the system is actually set up to attempt to reunite biological families. It's a pretty scary place to try to adopt from, and you have to go into it knowing full well that this child or children could be taken away at any moment. But there's a large subset of children, 99%, whose biological parents' rights have been terminated, and those kids need to be adopted. They don't have the biological parents to go back to. That said, because I'm married to a liberal bleeding heart, which is true, we decided to go with the adopting through foster care. Whew. The first step, you have to do, all the governmental things, fingerprints and background checks and all that. And then you have to take foster care classes. I live in Chicago. It's like Boston, warm about 3 days out of the entire year. And it was summertime. It also was cycling season, and I was competing. And we were commanded to be in a windowless basement room for 9 Saturdays in the summer. It was amazing, amazing. They gave us a manual ahead of time, and Kelly and I are both type A personalities and A students, and so we read the manual ahead of time. That's why you would give somebody the manual ahead of time. They recommended we bring a tablet or laptop to class so that we could take notes. And so we arrived to class with our laptops in tow, not to learn how to be parents or to learn how to take children who are not on your insurance program but on the state's insurance, how to deal with that, but how to deal with the bureaucracy of the system. Though we were both a little discouraged to be spending every Saturday in this classroom, we were ready to tackle this new adventure. Until they started reading the manual out loud to us. The manual we had both already read, and then it got better. Like in 4th grade, we got to take turns reading from the manual. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. So every Saturday, we would back up to the very last seat in the very back of the room so that nobody could see our laptop screens, and when it wasn't our turn to read from the manual, I was on Facebook and doing online shopping, and he was on Reddit. Though we certainly weren't model in-classroom students, we passed, and we received our license in August of last year, and we waited. And we waited, and we waited, and we waited. We took a few trips. I grew up in Utah. We went skiing. We enjoyed our nieces and nephews, and we continued to wait. On January 14th, our lives changed forever. I was leaving a meeting, and Kelly called and said, DCFS just called. They have an 8-month-old Caucasian little girl and want to know if we'll take her. But here's the thing about foster care. It's like shopping for a car. You can say what color you want, what make, what model, all of these things. We had decided we wanted boys, we wanted siblings so that kids wouldn't have to be split up, and we wanted to be sure that parental rights had already been terminated because, frankly, we weren't in this to reunite kids with parents. We were in this to build our own family. The social worker told us this little girl fit none of our qualifications, none of them. But she needed a home very badly. So we took her, which sounds so weird. We took her. At 6:30 that evening, just 5 short hours later, Addie arrived in her PJs, a winter coat. She came with a car seat that didn't have a base, 3 diapers, half a can of formula, and a glass bottle. Not a plastic bottle, a glass bottle. The social worker had no information. We didn't know where she was from, when she was born, where she was born, where the case was in the foster care system, literally nothing. And we had nothing. They tell you not to buy anything because you don't know age or gender or anything. So our next door neighbor loaned us a high chair and a pack and play, which is where she slept for the first six weeks because as it turns out, you can't just go into a store and buy a crib. Who knew? So there we were, in 5 short hours, we had a baby. And we still had jobs to do. I didn't have 9 months of pregnancy. I didn't have maternity leave. I had a huge meeting I had to attend to, and we had to keep going as if nothing had changed. It was very, very strange. Our first court date was that Friday, so this was a Tuesday, that was Friday. We both took the day off so that Addie could see the judge, her caseworker, her attorney, and her biological mother. When Addie didn't want to go to her biological mother, I started to cry. This little girl had entered my life 3 days earlier, and I was already falling in love. The social worker pulled me aside and said, no, 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 this is not going to happen. You have to pull yourself together and stay strong. So I did. We got through the court date, and then we went to Target and bought the entire store. Our friends and family really pulled through as well. Everybody kept sending gifts. It was amazing how many packages kept arriving, and the UPS guy was like, what is going on? It was great. So sort of got that whole like shower thing virtually. But it certainly, oh, and Jack Bauer, there's Jack Bauer. He's a huge mama's boy, and he did not like that we had brought this baby into his house, his world, but they kind of like one another now. But it's definitely not easy, it's not fun. In the beginning, her biological mom had visits 3 days a week for 2 hours, and she lived an hour away. So Addie was with the social worker for 5 or 6 hours every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and she wouldn't get home until after 8 p.m. That later changed to once a week, but still an hour away, and finally changed about 2 months ago closer to us. But we still leave work every Tuesday at 4:15. We show up at the library at 5 o'clock, and we wait for 20 minutes for biological mom to show up. Sometimes she shows, and sometimes she doesn't. By law, we have to show that we had Addie there to see mom. When she does show up, she's a kid. She's 17 years old. She's a foster kid herself, and it's become very, very apparent that she's in this to see us because we are adults who pay attention to her. She likes to get out of her own home, and so she comes to hang out with us. She gets very bored with hanging out with Addie. After the visits, we go home, we have dinner, we take a bath, we read some books, and then we go to bed. But the night is far from over. The trouble is that Addie has night terrors from the first 8 months of her life. Sometimes a bottle works, every Tuesday night. Sometimes my singing works, and other times I literally crawl into her bed and rub her back all night long. But we're a good year away from her becoming legally ours, and we're struggling within the confines of a system that seems to us to not always have the best interests of the children at its core. But in our home, at our family gatherings, and on those sleepless nights, Addie is our daughter, and we're going to fight to make her legally ours. Wouldn't you? Thank you.